Welcome to my stream. This is an impromptu last-minute stream. I noticed that the Gauntlet returns is looking like there will be some overlay closes in about 40 minutes from when I'm starting this. So figured I'd jump in, do a couple drafts. We can go over the slate. Thank you to anybody who is joining me. I don't know how many of you will be there because there are a lot of other streams going on right now. A lot of people talking NFL right now for the DFS slate, for the best ball slate. So appreciate any of you who decided to hang out with me while I go over this slate. I'm going to start here. I'm going to pull up the other screen so we can look at it. So here's my plan. I'm going to go basically left to right here, and then we'll come back to Underdog to do some drafts. I'm just going to go really quickly over the teams in the slate, just looking at what the matchups look like, and then look at what the usage has looked like in the most recent game. So just looking at the matchup. So right here, I have it using fantasy points, schedule adjusted fantasy points per game allowed over the last 5 weeks. So that is the first thing that I'm going to look at. I'm just going to go through position by position and look at how the defenses have fared against different positions. So starting with the quarterback position, you can see here, and it might be confusing if you haven't looked at this before. You can see here the Texans have given up the second most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks over the past 5 weeks. So this is a great matchup for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. So that's the first thing to note for this week. Now, obviously, we don't know who's going to move on to the next round, to the conference championship round yet. So we can't really dive into those yet. Hey, what's up, Steven? Thank you for joining me, Steven. Appreciate you. So I'll just go through real quick because I do want to get. I'm hoping to get 2 drafts in. We've got 39 more minutes to get 2 drafts in, so I'm just going to go real quick through the matchups, the usage. So starting with the matchups, looks like the Ravens have by far have the best matchup on the slate. Right behind them actually is San Francisco. Brock Purdy going against Green Bay. These are 2 of the top 3 matchups over the past 5 weeks. So they really stand out. The matchups for the bye week teams, Lamar Jackson, Brock Purdy, great matchups there. Scroll down, pretty middling matchup here for Jared Goff against the Tampa defense. Similarly, middling matchup for Baker Mayfield against the Detroit defense. Move down a little bit. It looks like a negative matchup, not extremely negative, not as negative as it once was, but still like a bottom 10, 12 matchup here for Green Bay. For Jordan Love against San Francisco. And then you drop down even more. Tough matchup for Josh Allen against the Chiefs. Tough matchup for Patrick Mahomes against the Bills. And then bottom of the barrel matchup for CJ Stroud against Baltimore. So that is what over the past 5 weeks, fantasy points per game allowed to quarterbacks looks like. I'll now go through running backs quickly. The best matchup on the board. Interesting. I was not expecting this. So to be straightforward here, I wasn't planning on doing the stream until about an hour ago. So I was planning on using the next hour to just dive into all this stuff, make my DFS lineups, and then decided last minute to do a stream instead. So I am looking at this for the first time. I mean, I've done some digging because I've been doing these drafts, but I had not noticed that this is a great matchup actually for Aaron Jones against San Francisco. Top 5 matchup over the past 5 weeks. Scroll down a little bit more, middling matchup for James Cook. And of course, it's all, we only have so many games to choose from. So the fact that it's middling for James Cook, it's only worse for the other running backs on the slate. Moving down, it is a actually below average matchup recently. It was not earlier in the year, but recent weeks, it's been a below average matchup for running backs against Green Bay. So sort of a tough matchup for Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey will do it against anybody. I don't care all that much. Sort of a tough matchup for Devin Singletary against Baltimore. The Chiefs, Pacheco, sort of a tough matchup against Buffalo. Detroit has a tough matchup with Tampa. Baltimore has a tough matchup with Houston, and then Tampa has a tough matchup with Detroit. So a lot of tough matchups here for the running backs on the slate. Really does make the Green Bay matchup stand out a little bit more. If you're buying into the data of just the past 5 weeks. Of course, you're always dealing with pretty small sample size. Even a full season of NFL is a somewhat small sample size. So just looking at the past 5 weeks, you can take it with a grain of salt if you want to. But I think it's at least worth looking at where the trends are going, because this, for example, caught me off guard that it is an easier matchup than I thought it had been for teams facing the Niners, running backs facing the Niners in recent weeks. All right, wide receivers, it's typically going to look pretty similar to the quarterback. Now, of course, there's tight ends involved too, but I'll just go quickly through. Baltimore has best matchup on the board of these teams. Interestingly, Tampa has a great matchup against Detroit. So those Tampa receivers, nice matchup here with Detroit. Moving down, San Francisco, pretty nice matchup with Green Bay. Mid-lean matchup here for the Texans receivers against the Ravens, and the Detroit receivers against Tampa. Below average matchup for Green Bay against San Francisco in terms of receivers. And then tough matchups for both pairs, receiving cores in the Kansas City Buffalo game. And then finally, tight end. This is where it usually gets interesting for me, is just seeing like, where does the tight end kind of differentiate from the receivers? As you can see here, Detroit tight ends, great matchup here for Sammy Ball game against Tampa Bay. Green Bay, nice matchup against San Francisco. Kittle, nice matchup against Green Bay. The Buffalo tight ends, nice matchup against Kansas City. So it's a pretty good tight end slate, which, we already knew just based on the talent of the tight ends, it was looking like a good slate. But in terms of matchups as well, Houston tight ends, nice spot against Baltimore. Baltimore, I guess it's just Isaiah Likely. Sadly, no Mark Andrews. Nice matchup against Houston. Below average matchup for K-Dot, and below average matchup for Travis Kelce. I don't think I missed any there. So there's your quick breakdown of the matchups. Now I'm just going to go through and look at the usage in the most recent game. So looking first at the receiving course, this is receivers and tight ends. So I pulled up week 17, so we can just look at in the most recent game for the Ravens and the Niners, where they were really trying to win, who had the most usage. And in terms of route percentage, Rashad Bateman actually led the way for the Ravens in that game. Isaiah Likely second. Nelson Aguilar 50% route participation. Zay Flowers 50% route participation. OBJ 42% route participation. Now you can refresh my memory. There must have been something going on. Maybe they weren't playing all out the entire game if Zay Flowers only seeing 50% route participation. But I think my takeaway here is just that Rashad Bateman has maybe surpassed Nelson Aguilar as the wide receiver 3 for the Ravens. Would be my biggest takeaway from looking at this week 17 usage data here. I'm also going to, nice matchup for Likely. Also, I mean, just he kind of has the Mark Andrews role whenever Mark Andrews is out. So it's a good spot for Likely. And then we'll look at the 49ers. Week 17 was also their most recent game where they were going all out. And it was Debo led the way, 90% route participation, Ayuk 73%, Kittle 73%, and then a big drop down to Ronnie Bell, Chris Conley. Interesting. Juwan Jennings must have been out for this game because he's not even showing up as running a route here. So I guess Ronnie Bell filled in week 17. I guess I should have looked at targets as well. So we saw Ayuk got 8, Debo 6, Kittle 4 in that game. And then as far as the Ravens, Bateman had 6 targets in that game. Likely and Flowers each had 3. All right. And then the rest of the teams, their most recent game that they cared about was just last weekend, wild card weekend. So we'll start with the Texans. In wild card weekend, in terms of route participation, it was Nico Collins leading the way, 91%. No surprise there. John Mechie, 59% route participation. Dalton Schultz, 50%. Robert Woods, 36%. Brevin Jordan, 32%. He, of course, had that awesome touchdown. Noah Brown now out. So that might be a little bump up for some other Houston receivers. Let's take a look. Noah Brown, typically where he lines up is out wide, 25% in the slot, at least in that most recent game. So that would be in line with John Mechie, maybe getting a little bit more run. They had pretty similar where they're lining up splits. Maybe John Mechie fills in for Noah Brown. Robert Woods, 50-50. It's hard to really tell who's going to benefit from Noah Brown being out this week. He had been playing just kind of banged up the past few weeks. But you can, give a little bit of a bump to the other receivers for the Texans if you wanted to. And then the Packers, of course, we had Christian Watson out last week, so that's also going to be a little bit tough. But Romeo Doubs, 67%, Tucker Kraft, 57%, Dontavian Wicks, 52%, Jaden Reed, 48%. Oh, Christian Watson did play some in that game, 29%. I would expect him to continue to get more routes going forward. You can see Watson was 50% out wide, 50% from the slot. The Packers receiving core, I got to be honest, is one of the tougher for me to really get a read on. I don't know. I still consider Jaden Reed to be the wide receiver 1. Not still. I mean, I think he has emerged as the wide receiver 1. Of course, then last game we had Romeo Doubs kind of out of nowhere, shock us all. And I think he scored 2 touchdowns in that game, had a big game. Dontavian Wicks, I think, has shown some skill. Obviously, Christian Watson, I think, still has a skill when he is healthy. So it's really hard to break down the Packers receiving core. I'm open to opinions on the pecking order there. To me, it would be Still Jaden Reed number one. I'm treating him like the number one receiver. I'm treating it as, I guess for this week at least, I'm treating it as Dobbs 2, Watson 3, Wicks 4, I think. But honestly, it's so tough for me. I really struggle with the Packers receivers, what the breakdown is going to be there. And then we have tomorrow. So we just did both of the bye games. The Tampa Bay in the most recent game, we had Mike Evans, 95% route participation. Let me. There we go. Mike Evans, 95%. K. Dotton, 79%. Chris Godwin, 74%. David Moore actually surpassed Trey Palmer in that game. That was out of nowhere. Trey Palmer has been the wide receiver 3 all year. Out of nowhere, David Moore, 41%. Maybe it's just because he was doing awesome in the first quarter. He had that couple really nice catches, one for a long touchdown. Of course, Trey Palmer got there anyway, late despite the 29% route participation. But I don't know what happened there. I don't know why David Moore surpassed Trey Palmer after Palmer had been pretty adequate, I think, all year. But that appeared to happen last week. So we can consider that if we want to draft some David Moore. I don't think he's going drafted in most best ball drafts. So something worth noting. And then the Bucs are playing Detroit. So we had Josh Reynolds actually led Detroit, 90% route participation, 90% for Amon-Ra St. Brown, 80% for Jameson Williams, 73% Sam Laporta. I think those are the, I didn't realize that. I thought Sam Laporta played more limited than that. 73% actually surprises me a little bit. I was thinking he would this week probably get a bump anyway. I think he was limited in their most recent practice, but honestly, I'm not too concerned about it. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that is my takeaway currently. Then we have the Bills and the Chiefs. All right, so on the Bills, 88% Stephon Diggs, 74% Khalil Shakir, 62% Dalton Kincaid, 44% Trent Sherfield, then 29% Knox, 27% Deontay Hardy. So that's the route participation from Wild Card Weekend, which I think is pretty significant because they obviously wanted to win that game, needed to win that game. In terms of targets, it was Diggs got back to me in a target monster, 9 targets in that game, 6 for Kincaid, 3 for Shakir, 2 for Dawson Knox. And then finally the Chiefs. Man, Rashee Rice, 10 targets in that game. Travis Kelce, 10 targets. So yeah, I kind of think that these two are the pretty clear leaders for the Chiefs. I guess everybody does. That's where they're being drafted. Rashee Rice has really come on strong second half of the year. The pretty clear wide receiver 1. Travis Kelce might be washed, but who knows? Maybe he'll put it back together this week. They are leading in route participation, 86% for Kelce, 81% Rashee Rice, 61% Justin Watson, 47% Mecole Hardman. Kind of, came out of nowhere to be the number 3 receiver there for the Chiefs. MVS has really been falling out of favor for most of the year. He was, close to the top in terms of route participation, still around 40%. Noah Gray, 26%, Richie James, 19%. Okay, so that's it for receivers. And then just really quickly, the running backs again for week 17. So this is the Ravens and the Chiefs most recent game. It was Gus Edwards, 56% snaps, Justice Hill, 33%, Patrick Ricard, 56%, but he's a fullback, doesn't really get carries. It was 16 carries for Gus Edwards. Melvin Gordon, actually, 6 carries in that game. I believe he was waived, and now Delvin Cook signed to the Ravens, so maybe Cook comes in. That's kind of a wild card. Who knows what Cook's role is going to be for the Ravens. I think he is pretty washed at this point, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe they're going to use him more than I'm expecting. I'm still thinking it is Gus Edwards, the running back 1, but then Justice Hill is the passing down back, 5 targets, as you can see in this game, and 33%. So I think those are probably the Ravens that you want, but who knows? Delvin Cook definitely is a little bit of a wild card. Good to see you here, Ali, John, Stephen. Once again, thank you all for hanging out with me while I go over the slate. I'm going to just go quickly here finish this up, and then I'm going to jump into hopefully a couple drafts. I'm hoping to get a couple in. The longer I take, the less likely it's going to be that I get into multiple. But I guess we don't even need to look at this because it's pretty clearly Christian McCaffrey is the lead back for the 49ers. Eli Mitchell also played 38% of snaps in that one. Who knows if he's going to play much in the playoffs while McCaffrey is healthy. Probably not if it's a close game. We'll see. And then wild card weekend, we had the Texans, Singletary, 13 carries in that game, 3 targets on 55% rep participation. Clearly the lead back for the Texans. Nobody else really played all that much, enough that you need to really consider them. For the Packers, it's the Aaron Jones show. 61% of snaps. He had 21 carries and just 1 target in the most recent game. Emmanuel Wilson played ahead of Patrick Taylor. I'm not sure if A.J. Dillon is coming back today, but he would obviously be the running back 2 behind Jones if he does come back. Tomorrow we have the Lions, one of the more interesting splits to look at. 54%, 55% snap share for David Montgomery. He also had 14 carries. He just had 1 target on 37% route participation. That's a little bit surprised me. He actually ran more routes than Jahmyr Gibbs did in that game. Gibbs played fewer snaps, had 8 carries, had 4 targets. So honestly, I think most people are kind of considering this to be Gibbs has taken over, but I think Montgomery, I don't know, it's a clear 1A, 1B situation for the Lions. For the Bucks, we saw Chase Edmonds come in and actually take on more of a role than any running back who has had this year for Tampa. Rachaad White still 71% snap share, 18 carries, 3 targets in that game. Chase Edmonds, 29% snap share. He had 7 carries, so he had a real role and a couple targets. I believe Chase Edmonds is questionable to play. I'm expecting him to play, but who knows? For the Bills, James Cook, clearly the lead back, still 18 carries in the most recent game, 4 targets. Ty Johnson has maybe surpassed Latavius Murray. It's pretty close there. They each had a couple targets. Ty Johnson actually played more snaps, 23% snap share. He had 8 carries to Latavius Murray's 0. And then, as I said, they both had a couple targets. So maybe Ty Johnson is actually the RB2 now for the Bills. And then for the Chiefs, it's the Pacheco show. 24 carries. CEH actually had 7, so he was involved a little bit more than I remembered. They each had 1 target in that game. So there you go. There is the full slate breakdown. Now, the only other thing that I like to look at for these playoff best ball drafts is just odds of making the Super Bowl, and that's this column. I don't care who wins the Super Bowl. I just need my players to make it to the Super Bowl. So we have the Ravens, according to playoffstatus.com. Ravens 60%, 49ers 46%, Lions 38%. So those are the 3 teams by far the likeliest to make the Super Bowl. Then you get a drop down to the Bills just ahead of the Chiefs, 18% to 15%. And then the Bucks, the Texans, the Packers all have below 10% odds of making the Super Bowl. So I'm kind of factoring that in as I'm trying to build out my drafts for the Gauntlet. Before I jump into a Gauntlet draft, if anybody has any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about best ball, about DFS, whatever you're thinking about. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you for joining me, Paul. Hello. Thank you for joining me, Jewish McCaffrey. Good to see you. And yes, thank you, Stephen, for that reminder. I have been forgetting on this channel to remind people to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Please do. Helps me out a lot if you would subscribe to the channel, of course. And then, yeah, if you just like the video, really appreciate that as well. So thank you for that reminder, Stephen. All right. Now I'm going to just jump into a Gauntlet returns draft. As you can see here, we've got 22 minutes left, so I got to get in right now. I don't know. I can't remember exactly how long these drafts take, but I am jumping in right now if you want to join. Before I even did my first Gauntlet returns draft, the first question I got was, should I be taking Christian McCaffrey with the 101? At that time, he was the 101 typically was Christian McCaffrey, and at that time, I thought I would probably stick to it. After doing some drafts, honestly, it is really hard. If you, and at that time, actually, when you started, you could get Christian McCaffrey and then get Mahomes on the comeback from what I was told. These days, you really, if you take Christian McCaffrey with the 101, you are stuck with Goff, so another NFC quarterback, Stroud, the only really remaining viable AFC quarterback that you can take. So I've done a few of those. So at this point, I am switching it up. I don't think I'm going to take CMC 101. It's tough because he might put up, 30 fantasy points and you need him to advance. So FTSY Sports Dave asking me about props today or anytime TDs. So I want to be upfront. I don't really do sports betting. You can't sports bet in Minnesota. So all I can really do is Prize Picks, Underdog, those type of sites. I haven't looked, but I could look at it real quick. What's being offered on as far as anytime TDs, who is likely to score a touchdown today? Obviously, it would be McCaffrey likely to score one, but it's all going to depend on the odds. For today also the Ravens. I mean, I think Isaiah Likely is pretty, not to pardon the pun, but pretty likely to score a touchdown. Zay Flowers, any of the Ravens receivers, I think I like to. Somebody's gonna score I think a receiving touchdown. So I kind of like those, but honestly, it's not my forte. I'm not very good at prop betting because it's never been allowed in Minnesota. Now, as I said, we do have the pick'em sites now, so I'm starting to play it when I think of it, but it's always been sort of like not on the front of my mind kind of thing. I've always been more of a DFS best ball player, not nearly as much into the prop betting. So I usually just use tools that are available. Steven says one of the local touts that he listens to is big on a Nico Collins anytime at plus money. Yeah, I mean, it does seem pretty likely. Adam asks, can you be live with 4 out of 5 in the Super Bowl? I don't really think so in these, because there's no bye. So in the Gauntlet returns, in the regular Gauntlet where there are teams on bye, if those teams both make the Super Bowl, I think you can be live with just 4 in the Super Bowl. I don't really think you're that live with 4 in these contests because I think that there are going to be a lot of teams that make it with 5 teams. So yeah, to answer this question, I really think you need to have 5 in the Super Bowl. So even if it is like taking a crappy backup, I do it anyway. All right, so Zay goes. That's kind of a bummer. All right, so I've got Lamar. I think I want to take Gus Edwards. Just take my my Baltimore running back to go with Lamar. And then who else do I want? Maybe I just go with. Yeah, I think I just take Jahmyr Gibbs. Oh man, but then I don't have any great receivers. But there are just none of the receiving options. Could take Laporta. No, I'm going to go Laporta. Stick with my Edwards. Start building out my NFC. Could be a mistake. I think I've done about 10 of these drafts. So either in this contest or in some of the other contests that are available. So, I haven't done like the many that you sometimes will do to get a good feel for them, but I think I have a decent feel for how these drafts usually go. So yeah, I've got my two Baltimore pieces so far. Got to build out some more Baltimore and then some NFC side as well. Thank you for joining me, Adam. Yeah, I like doing this kind of format where it's just it's easier when it's just me too, and I don't have to do reads or anything, so I can just have a conversation with people. Still can be stressful, especially when I'm trying to draft, but it's usually a good time for me. Adam says Jaden Reed anytime TD is a lock. So there you go. There's an answer. There's somebody who maybe is better at that kind of question than I am. Gibbs, Goff. So he's building out Detroit and San Francisco. That's, I mean, trying to get to the Super Bowl, I guess. All right, so who had the McCaffrey? Oh, McCaffrey went third. Interesting. So Coach Gabbs, what's he? Oh, so he was able to get. If you can get McCaffrey third, then you're able to do the Chiefs. So he actually has. I really like that start for Coach Gabbs. Yeah, it's like you can't do it if you take McCaffrey first, but yeah, I guess hadn't thought about that. If you can get him to fall to, you might be able to get the both of both worlds, best of both worlds, and get McCaffrey with an AFC stack. Yeah, I mean it's tough because there's nobody who's as likely as McCaffrey to put up 35 fantasy points today and just knock you out if you don't have him. But at the same time, it's tough to build around him in a way that you might want to. All right, so is likely still available. No, Likely got shoot. All right. Well then, I could take Andrews here. I think I could probably wait on Andrews. Oops. I kind of like the idea of building out more NFC teams. I think Tampa is likelier to move on than Green Bay. And I can go with a couple Tampa guys here. Yeah, we are, but both Detroit running backs got taken, so I can't continue building that out. So I think that's a okay way to go about things. So now I've got Lamar with 0 pass catchers. I mean, Gus Edwards, I guess theoretically, but he's just not that much of a pass catcher. I've got Tampa being built out. So at this point now I have 4 for the Super Bowl. I would need one more Baltimore or Tampa receiver here to have a full Super Bowl matchup there for Baltimore Tampa, which is obviously not an extremely likely Super Bowl. So I'm not don't get it twisted. I don't think that is an extremely likely Super Bowl, but got to build out what you can. That's got to build teams that can move on from this round. It is just one of 6 here, but then also have teams that are live for the Super Bowl. Uh-oh. Is that right? Let me take a look at it. Oops. Oh yeah, it doesn't really let you. Here, I can do this. Coach Gab says McCaffrey. Yeah, he's got all of the best Chiefs with Mahomes, Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, and then McCaffrey. That is a very strong start for Coach Gabs for sure. Don't hate this start for Slick Willie. Actually, this is a pretty good draft so far, I would say. People are mostly staying in their lanes. I don't really understand what JP is doing. All right, well now he's building out, started to build out his AFC side, and of course taking the guys that I wanted. This is not ideal when I'm building for Lamar and then Joseph right next to me is also stealing all of my Baltimore guys. I don't love that. Making it tough on me. He has naked Purdy. That's not ideal for him. All right, so here is where I think I don't have McCaffrey. I might want to just bet on Baltimore with San Francisco Super Bowl where McCaffrey is hurt, like going into the Super Bowl, and or Eli. Maybe they just actually do play some Eli Mitchell. I do think I need to start worrying about having at least some pieces of Baltimore, and of course Bateman looks pretty good. As I said, he ran a significant amount of routes in the most recent game, so I'm going to take him, and I'm going to take Eli Mitchell. Is it a mistake? I mean, Devin Singletary is obviously the likely to put up a lot of points this week. Could also take Cook. I don't know. I'm going to go with Eli Mitchell. So now I have, looking at my team, I've got Baltimore. So I just have 3 from Baltimore. So I don't have a full Baltimore San Francisco lineup currently. I've just got 3 from Baltimore and then Elijah Mitchell, which is honestly a little bit thin. So I would need one more Baltimore or San Francisco pass catcher to have a full roster there. Looks better for the Baltimore Tampa matchup, which is obviously a long shot as we saw here. Tampa with a 8% chance of making the Super Bowl. The NFC is so weak that it's possible, but maybe not the likeliest outcome. Bringing it back to the teams. Let's see, coach as he moved. He's pivoted to also building out for Green Bay. He's got a one-off Kincaid in there. Yeah, I mean, I think these you kind of need more one-offs in these maybe than the original contests. Yeah, that's a good point. He's he's not a particularly strong play, but if he gets 2 receptions in the Super Bowl, and it could be what you need. Maybe those 2 receptions, because it's tough to get through these contests. So I'll take him, and took him, and I'm gonna hope for the best. Mostly because a lot of these contests, I obviously was not hoping that I was going to be relying on Rashad Bateman here. It did not work out great for me that I have multiple other people in this room. Decided taking Likely fairly early here. I thought I'd be able to get Likely on the turn. Didn't realize he took him right before me. And then, of course, after Likely, when I thought, okay, Mark Andrews, I'll take him. Hope that he returns to the Super Bowl. Mark Andrews goes. So it's the room has not been kind to me, I think, in terms of building out for Baltimore, but making the most of it. I don't think that I have the best team here. I don't know that I really like having the 101. I typically prefer, in most drafts, I like having the number 1 spot or the number 6 spot. I like to just take 2 picks at a time to be able to figure out what I'm doing. I don't know that it is the best spot in these drafts. All right, I got to figure out who I want here. Are there more Ravens? Oh, did somebody take? Yeah, he took Aguilar right before me as well. All right. So he's just building out fully for that Super Bowl matchup. All right, I'm going to go K-Dot in here. Are there any other Ravens that are really viable? I don't think so. I could take Duvernay, hope for a return touchdown or something. Even Cook went already. Do I just want to take a one-off here? I mean, I could take a one-off Schultz as a run back for this week. Could take Trey Palmer, add to that stack a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to do Schultz. Hope he scores 2 touchdowns and a loss this week. I guess we can look at the grid again. Yeah, I don't know. Purdy, naked Purdy, and then just all of the Baltimore guys. I don't know. Don't know what to make of that. Definitely did not help me, though. Not loving my lineup here. It's you know, if the Ravens make the Super Bowl and this team gets there, I would say I have several pieces, but they're not the best pieces in the world. Basically, all of the viable Ravens went sooner than they usually do, so that was has not been ideal for me. I guess he took Flowers right at ADP. He took OBJ 15 spots out of ADP. He took Likely 6 spots, 7 spots out of ADP. Aguilar, just 1 spot ahead of ADP. So yeah, the guy right next to me sniping all of the Ravens, not ideal. But I do have running back and receiver from the Ravens, along with the quarterback. So I just need a couple from the other potential Super Bowl matchups. As I said, I've got Eli Mitchell there, so that's probably the likeliest Super Bowl matchup. Is I mean that's obviously the likeliest Super Bowl matchup is Ravens and 49ers. By the way, guys, if you want to get into these drafts, I'm going to do one more immediately after this, but it closes in 8 minutes. So that will be your last opportunity to draft these Gauntlet returns drafts. The contest closes in 8 minutes. So I'm just going to do one more. We're going to stream it. And you can, of course, wait to do that draft with me. All right. Do I take Jordan Mason or Ronnie Bell? I guess it would need to be a running or a receiver from San Francisco for it to be full, I think. I'm going to think about Ronnie Bell. So it comes down to, do I want Ronnie Bell or Duvernay? That's close. Duvernay just adds to my stack and makes it easier. Okay. I got Ronnie Bell. All right. So again, the final team there, and I'm going to jump into a draft momentarily, was not a beautiful team. But if it ends up being Baltimore and Tampa, I won't hate that. That would obviously be great. So from that perspective, it's not the worst draft. But I got Lamar. My 3 running backs, I have Edwards, Rashad White, Eli Mitchell, and then at receiver, I've got Sam Laporta, who ended up being just a one-off. I've got Chris Godwin, Rashad Bateman, K. Dotton, Dalton Schultz, Ronnie Bell. So I have, if it is Baltimore, Tampa, I've got Lamar, Edwards, White, Bateman, Godwin, Otten. So full Super Bowl with a few different combos that I can get there. And then if it is San Francisco, it'd be Lamar, Edwards, Eli Mitchell, Rashad Bateman, Ronnie Bell. So that's probably not a very competitive Super Bowl team, but you never know. You never know what's going to make it in. All right, let's do one more draft here because we've got limited time. Yeah, I got 6 more minutes to enter these drafts. I'm going to enter one right now in 3, 2, 1, enter. So if you want to join me, now is the time. Not getting Baker is really the worst part after Flowers being sniped. For me, I mean, are you talking about my draft or just in general? Because I have Lamar, I generally am not going to take a second quarterback if I have Lamar, especially if particularly when it is somebody, if it's Lamar or Purdy, if it's one of the teams where I'm just expecting that team to make the Super Bowl. So for me, I wasn't planning on taking Baker, to be honest. I typically just build with one quarterback. Maybe that's a mistake. I don't know. But the way I build it was not a problem for me. All right, third pick. I think that's a decent pick here. We'll see how the room goes. Yeah, it was definitely nice for the guy who got McCaffrey and the full Chiefs stack in that last one. I would feel really good with that team. I think my team was fine, but not honestly not my favorite draft. And I don't think I drafted poorly. Maybe I did, but I think it was largely just it's in these drafts in particular. Sometimes things just don't go the way you want them to, and you make the best of it. So I think I made the best of a bad situation with the person next to me sniping all my picks, but didn't love my team. So who is Sly Tomato going to pick? Looks like we got a lot of badges. Only one non-badge in this draft. All right, he goes Lamar. McCaffrey. Now, am I going to fall into the trap? We'll see. Then he goes with Josh Allen. Unky goes with Mahomes. So then LD is left with, one of the less likely quarterbacks. Goes with Amon-Ra. Interesting. Amon-Ra Debo. This is where you start getting nervous because I had 3 picks before me and all 3 of the Niners guys left. And of course, Debo goes, Ayuk goes. Now don't take Kittle. Take somebody else, Benny. You want Diggs. You've got Allen. Take Diggs. All right. Good man. Good man. Thank you. Thank you. Benny walks, giving me Kittle. So I at least have a little bit of a stack here with Purdy and Kittle. I have started drafting more Buffalo. I was completely out on Buffalo in the early regular playoff best ball drafts because they only had a 20% chance of advancing and they were being drafted in every draft. So I thought I didn't love the Buffalo picks when they were being drafted every single time as a team that was pretty unlikely to make the Super Bowl. Now that they are clearly they have pretty good odds, one of the better odds of making the Super Bowl. So I'm drafting some Buffalo. I think maybe I still have a little bit of a bias against them because I know that I want them to lose, but I've been hedging a little bit by trying to draft some Buffalo. All right, I've got Purdy, Kittle. Who do I want from the AFC? That is the question. All right, so I'm definitely taking Pacheco or Cook. Who do you guys think? Who should I take? Pacheco or Cook? Who should I build for here? Any thoughts? I'll come back and answer any questions. Or Gus, actually. Could build any of those 3. I'm watching chat, waiting for a response. Cook. First response I get, Adam. Good man. All right, I'm doing it. Because here I don't know. It's they're all you could build for any of the 3 at this point. You're not getting their best receivers with them. I guess I could have built Pacheco with Kelsey. Maybe Kelsey gets back, so I could have hoped for that, but I don't know how likely that is anyway. We've got Cook. So now I'm building out for San Fran, Buffalo primarily, and maybe we'll build in a second AFC stack. All right, so I went with Adam's suggestion. Steven said Pacheco right after, and I missed that. But I mean, I think they're honestly similar in what you can do. As Daniel says, more Buffalo to build. I think that's true. I mean, there's a million different Kansas City options to choose from at the back of drafts, but it's hard. Cheyenne also says Cook. Yeah, this is a fair concern, Cheyenne. I'm also concerned about it. I was actually here. I may have thought about taking Gus and built out for two different AFC teams, Buffalo and Baltimore. If Gus had fallen to me, just because I think Baltimore has such good odds of making the Super Bowl, but I'm fine with Gus going there. Yeah, so Kelsey went. All right, so now I can take Kincaid here. Yeah, I think that's probably the way to go. So I'm building out for NFC. Obviously, there are better one-off pieces. I could take Mike Evans, Rashad White. There are different ways to go here, but I'm just going to go with Kincaid. So now I've got a couple San Francisco pieces, couple Buffalo pieces. Not a full Super Bowl yet, but if I just take one more running back or wide receiver from Buffalo, San Francisco, then I have a full Super Bowl. Do we think Gabe comes back? It's unclear to me if Gabe is going to be back for the playoffs for the Super Bowl. I'm glad to hear that, Steven. I didn't think you were. I didn't think you were hurt. Just throwing out all the different responses out there, because I don't think there was a wrong answer there. Maybe Steven will come on my stream sometime. I know I watched Steven on Chris Spags' best ball stream last year, so I know that Steven is in these streets with us. I know not everybody wants to go on camera, which is totally reasonable. Not everybody loves to go on streams, but I know Steven has been willing at least once in the past. What do we think? Who do you even prefer here? Is it Shakir? Is it Gabe? Like, who is? It's obviously this week it would be Shakir, and I think I go with it because I think there is a reasonable chance I think that Gabe just doesn't come back for the playoffs. So I think Shakir might be the better bet anyway. Even though I'm taking Buffalo here, Christopher, I really hope the Chiefs win because I did not take, as I said, I didn't take any Buffalo in the early playoff best ball drafts or the weekly winners contest. I was building for all of the. Oh, that hurts a little bit. Benny. He let me have Kittle, so I'll forgive him. But I was really hoping that Eli Mitchell was going to come back to me at ADP. It would have been just a pick ahead of ADP if he had made it back to me. But all right. Can't get too mad because Benny did allow me to take my Kittle. Monkey Freedom building out for. He's got Gus Edwards in there. I don't know. I do already have a full Super Bowl here. I would have liked to have more. Eli Mitchell, I think the last good piece for San Francisco. I think Jordan Mason is going basically undrafted in these. Yeah, ADP of 59. My guess is that he's being undrafted in a lot of them. He's a good fallback. I have come around to, I think Eli Mitchell is a pretty clear. All right, who do I want here? So I've got Buffalo. I could take Likely here. So you saw the last one, he went well ahead of ADP. I can now take a second. I was trying to decide if it would have made more sense for me to take Justice Hill there, but I think Hill is actually the more likely of the two to make it back to me with my next pick than Likely. So I think Likely, his ADP is still a little bit lower than you would expect it to be going forward because we didn't know if Andrew was going to play until recently. Could add Gabe in here later. Could add Knox in here later. I still think I'd prefer Jordan Mason over Juszczyk. I know I've seen a lot of people take Juszczyk, and maybe he is the likelier to just fall into the end zone. I think Jordan Mason has there's no world in which Juszczyk becomes the lead back for San Francisco, whereas I think Jordan Mason, if CMC gets hurt, it's within his range of outcomes to at the very least be splitting carries with Eli Mitchell. I think the likelier scenario is that Eli Mitchell takes on close to that McCaffrey role, but I think there's a better chance of Jordan Mason having a real role. Which at this point, who it's all relative. So maybe just fall into the end zone once for use check is more valuable. But I think Jordan Mason is just the likelier to put up fantasy points. All right, this hurt a little bit. Justice Hill goes to the Lamar team. Makes sense. I was hoping he'd get back to me, but did not. Of course, I could throw Delvin Cook in there too. I get both the Cook brothers. Now I'm going to go Bateman. Or now I got Juwan Jennings in there too. So there's a lot of different ways to go here. I think I go. Man, this is tough. I'm going to go Bateman. Really tough, though, at this point. So now I've got Juwan Jennings, Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox. I'll throw Delvin Cook on that pile. Nelson Aguilar. I've got Cook, so I don't know that I really want Ty Johnson. But yeah, I'm clearly building out for these three teams now. It's just San Francisco. Gabe Davis goes to Benny. San Francisco, Buffalo, Baltimore. I wouldn't have any running back currently for a San Francisco and Baltimore Super Bowl, so I got to factor that in. Jennings goes. All right. Maybe I should have taken home over Bateman, add to my stack with my QB. Steven ran for office. Interesting. Is that Massachusetts, I think? I know you're a Massachusetts, Boston sports fan. Yeah, I think this is inevitable. Kittle's going to have at least one big game. Agree with you, Steven. I think that Bateman, of course, he let me down all year in terms of best ball. All right. Jennings and Gabe both went. Those would have been my favorites of the remaining picks, but looking okay. I do need one of these two if I'm going to have a full San Francisco-Baltimore Super Bowl. Do I need any one-offs? I got to think about that. Like, I don't have the best receiving core. I mean, likely actually could be good. Hopefully Kittle puts up some points this week. The remaining one-offs aren't that good anyway, so I think I just go with Knox. So now I've got both tight ends for Buffalo. Interesting. All right, he's got Andrews. So he's built in a full Baltimore. Interesting. It is tough. Even people wanting to stay in their lanes in these drafts, like you only have so many teams to choose from. So you're obviously always going to be, you can't just get everybody you want from the teams you want. Funny, Cheyenne actually knows Steven. It is a small world. Kadarius Toney already ruled out for tomorrow. All right, so I'm going to go with Jordan Mason so that I have a full. I mean, it's unlikely that Jordan Mason puts up points, but I'd at least know that I have the possibility of fantasy points in different game scripts for the Super Bowl. So I have the full weight. Do I have a full for San Francisco, Baltimore? Yes, I do, because I have Purdy. I have just Jordan Mason at running back, so running a little bit thin, but most teams are going to be. I've got George Kittle, and then if it is Baltimore, I would have Likely and Bateman in the flex. So I think that would be, have a chance. Probably not the best chance. There are probably some super teams out there, but have a chance. And then, of course, obviously, it would be better for me if it is Buffalo because I've got Purdy, Mason, Kittle once again. And then from Buffalo, I've got Cook, Kincaid, Shakir, Dawson, Knox. So that'd be the better Super Bowl scenario for me. Any other kind of drafts you guys want to do after this one? I mean, we've got 20 minutes left to make DFS lineups, so I don't know if we want to get to those instead of doing more drafts, but I could do a Sunday only draft. I've done a couple of those. I've got Cook already, so Ty Johnson, I feel like there's like slight negative correlation there. Maybe not the best pick for me. I could take Juszczyk and just have both of those backup San Francisco options. Could take Ronnie Bell. I mean, Juwan Jennings went. I don't know that Ronnie Bell is that much worse. Maybe that makes more sense. Yeah, add another pass catcher. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do Ronnie Bell. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk DFS if anybody. I mean, I already went over all of the like game by game matchups usage stuff, which I think is relevant to DFS also. But if anybody has any questions, anything specific about DFS you want to talk about, I have spent just a little bit of time on my lineups. I don't know if I'm not playing that many lineups right now. Today, I might play more tomorrow. Yeah, I think I would have voted for Steven. Don't know his platform. I assume it is Pizza for Everyone. That's Emacs platform, right? So that's if it was Steven versus Emac, I would have a decision to make. That would be tough for me, but I think I would vote for Steven. All right, so there we did. We closed out the Gauntlet. I am fairly sure that it's no longer available. I think all of obviously the Saturday NFL slates are done. Could do a Sunday only NFL draft. Where is that? Sunday shootout right here. Could do one of these drafts for tomorrow. $10 buy-in. It's 10,000 a first. They're just 4-person drafts. Did I fade anyone? Alias. Yeah, so I think I have 24 DFS lineups today, and I did them in about 5 minutes before I started. So I spent very little time on DFS today. I could look at it for a bit. Yeah. Oh, Steve, you would vote for Emac over yourself, Steven? I don't know. That would be tough. That'd be tough. Hopefully you guys would run together, ideally. Did I fade anybody? Not intentionally. There was nobody that I just decided going in that I wanted to fade. Let me look at my DFS real quick. I'm going to refresh my fantasy cruncher. Unfortunately, I don't want to show you the data because it is paywalled. So I'm a little bit like I can only speak kind of vaguely since I'm no longer on the Stochastic channel. I'm like I don't know what the rules are as far as what I can and can't show for DFS. So I will talk about it a little bit vaguely, but just looking at what I have currently. I mean, I'll say that I find it fascinating that Josh Allen is projected for very low ownership. I know it's a tough matchup, but clearly has elite rushing abilities. So the fact that we've got Josh Allen projected for low ownership is intriguing to me. Stroud kind of interesting at really low ownership. I love Lamar today. Lamar getting relatively low ownership is fascinating to me against the Texans. It's obviously an elite spot for Lamar. Kind of some lower owned passing options as well. So I think that is a pay up to be contrarian spot that I really like. I guess I just named both of the pay up to be contrarian spots, but I would say I think Lamar, all things considered, might be my favorite quarterback on the slate just because it is such an elite matchup and he's coming in at low ownership. it's a, you can make a case for, I think, any quarterback on the slate, like either based on ownership or salary or some combination or matchup. I think that you can make a case for just about any quarterback on the slate. I do think Lamar is probably my favorite, just factoring in ownership and matchup and just like ability to put up 100 yards on the ground. Ollie said he faded McCaffrey and Diggs. Yeah, I think that is. I mean, I feel a lot more comfortable fading Diggs against that Kansas City secondary than I do fading McCaffrey. But I think that's reasonable. I think KC wins. I hope that you're right there. Yeah, Steven says Mayfield stack is kind of interesting. I actually did a ton of stacks from that game when I was drafting on Underdog for the 4-game slate, which I think those are all closed out. But just like for this weekend, just the divisional round 4-game slates, I drafted a ton of Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff. They were going like undrafted or late drafted. Yeah, Ollie, under 20% for Lamar, which to me is fairly low. Yeah, agreed, Steven. I also like the dome games. So yeah, I did a lot of that game, the Detroit. As far as running backs go, what's the most interesting? Let's see. Obviously, McCaffrey is going to be high owned, as he should be. He just gets elite usage, elite skills. Not as good of a matchup as I thought, but still, he's McCaffrey. I don't really care that much. Gibbs getting a lot more ownership than Montgomery, as we saw looking at the usage. I think Montgomery might be getting slept on a little bit, just as the guy who is generally going to get more carries than Gibbs. I think both are totally viable. Gibbs still also under 20% ownership. It's not too bad. Rachaad White also, I think, is getting slept on a little bit. Fairly low ownership, low price tag. So I kind of like Rachaad White as a play. I'm adjusting things as I'm saying this. I'm adjusting the players to get more of the guys that I'm talking about. Gus Bus, always interesting. I'm combining the words intriguing and interesting. Gus Edwards, I think, is pretty good spot here at 12%, 5,900. Now, Houston used to be a run funnel. This year, they have not been a run funnel at all. So it's not like an elite matchup, but Gus Edwards has always been pretty efficient. So low ownership for a 4-game slate, kind of interesting to me. That's interesting. So Justice Hill and Gus Edwards getting almost identical ownership. Justice Hill, I think, probably the better pairing with Lamar. Actually, let me we can look at that. Look at the bell cow report for week 17, which is obviously just one game, but yeah, 5 targets for Justice Hill in that game. Clearly still the passing down back, 50% route participation. So I don't hate the idea of pairing Justice Hill with Lamar. Who else is interesting here? I don't know that I'm doing RB2s on a 4-game slate. Maybe on the 2-gamer, you can think about doing like an Eli Mitchell but not my favorite. As far as wide receivers, I kind of like the San Francisco receivers. I don't hate the idea of, like, I think that's going a little bit underlooked. Debo, Ayuk, both getting fairly low ownership. I think that they're both really interesting. So I'd say that's another spot that what's Purdy? Purdy coming in at, Purdy under 20% ownership as well. He actually, I think, is getting majorly overlooked. And you compare him obviously with McCaffrey, with Kittle, with Debo, with Ayuk. They all look great. So I actually really like just San Francisco stacks in general, largely because Debo is, really expensive, too expensive, honestly. But as a result, his ownership is really low, and it wouldn't be that shocking to see San Francisco just put up a ton of fantasy points on Green Bay, or a ton of real life points on Green Bay. So I think that's one of my favorite spots, is just going to San Francisco, or either as a full stack or just as one-offs, just Debo, Ayuk one-offs. They're both kind of low owned, so I don't dislike that one bit. OBJ, pretty interesting at relatively low ownership. Basically, all of the Baltimore guys are coming in pretty low owned. Actually, Bateman, after looking at Steven said he really likes Bateman going forward. Looking at Bateman's ownership now, pretty intriguing based on his more recent usage. Who knows if it's going to stick, but I think everybody, the chalk is going to be Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams for Detroit. Actually, they're not projected for crazy high ownership, but wouldn't surprise me if Josh Reynolds and Jameson Williams end up getting a ton of ownership, and Rashad Bateman ends up being significantly lower. And he is projected for lower ownership, but makes me pretty intrigued by Rashad Bateman here, because he is also the kind of player who can just do it, with a couple catches. As Steven pointed out, I think it was Steven pointed out about Bateman, right? That he's only Prize Picks has him at like two receptions is his line, so not expecting a ton of usage, but pretty interesting. Ravens are rested. Yeah, true. Yeah, exactly. I think Josh Reynolds, I think Jameson Williams too. Like people he's got that, like he could score a 50-yard touchdown. He's got that going for him. So people really like him. Baldy, have never really watched college football. So I'm sure I would have loved Bateman with the Gophers if I had watched. I think I went to one Gophers game when I was in law school. I didn't go to the U of M for undergrad. If I had, I probably would have become a much bigger Gophers fan, but I didn't. So, there have been like, yeah, I grew up in Minnesota. I live in Minnesota. I'm a Gophers fan, but I'm not like, I don't actually watch. I'm a Gophers fan in theory. I would cheer, like if they go to a bowl game, I'll watch them in the bowl game. I'll cheer them on, be excited for them, but I don't like watch them throughout the year. All right, could do one of these Sunday only drafts. We've got about 10 minutes left of DFS. I guess I'll finish my DFS lineup, see if I have any other thoughts on any of these other receivers. But yeah, the Ravens receivers, the San Francisco receivers all look kind of underowned to me. Honestly, it looks pretty even. Like the ownership is even overall, which surprised me a little bit. We're not getting anybody who is all that chalky at receiver. Tight end. Laporta, like pretty nice matchup there for Laporta. The usage is unknown here, but yeah, I'm interested in some Sammy ball game. Kittle is going to get a lot of. Looks like Kelsey's going to get the most ownership. Kittle number 2. I think that's fine. Like it's not. I was going to say like Kittle's the type of player who's so boom bust that if he gets high ownership, I want to fade him. Even though he has second highest ownership, though, it's actually not that much. So I'm totally fine getting to a good amount of Kittle. As we saw, Kincaid actually has, here, I'll pull that back up. In the wild card weekend, Kincaid, I think he was a second receiver. Third. So 62% route participation. So way more than Knox. It's not like they're splitting there. And he saw 6 targets in that game. So I do think Kincaid is pretty interesting at relatively low ownership. Let's see. All right, I'll answer. Ayuk and Jordan Reed, or oh man, that's tough, Ollie. I think I lean to the first one. I think I lean Ayuk, Jaden Reed, but those are both. I kind of like both of those combos, but yeah, I think I would lead the Ayuk, Jaden Reed, DK single entry showdown. Okay, Gus Edwards and Xavier Hutchinson, or Stroud and Andrew Beck / any other min-priced player. All right. It would probably be the latter, Stroud, just because Hutchinson, I don't think. Yeah, Shakir, that's a good call out, Steven. Shakir is another good option with Gabe out. Now let's look at Hutchinson's usage in that most recent game. So that was wild card weekend. Pull up Houston. I guess he could get a bump here because Noah Brown is out. Yeah, 23% raw participation in that game for Hutchinson. He did have 2 targets, and he could get the bump. I guess Noah Brown only ran 4 routes, but say they give him to Hutchinson, that would be nice. But overall, I just think that Stroud is like clearly projects way better than Gus does. So I think I lean going with Stroud and a min price player. Let me see if there's anybody who looks particularly good min priced. All right, let's see. Let me just pull that up real quick. Let me look at I haven't looked at Showdown at all, so I don't know what the prices are, but I will pull that up real quick. And that is going to lock in 7 minutes, right? All right. Do they have to be like actually min priced? It would probably be, yeah, that's tough. Those min price players are just not that good. You don't have any great like actual min priced options. So, but I still think that's the route I would go, just because if you look at the projections, like I think Stroud projects the projection of Stroud over Gus Edwards, and I think the likelihood of success is greater than the likelihood of success for Xavier Hutchinson over a min price player. It's really close. It is a pretty close question, but I think that I would go with Stroud there. NFL time. Yeah, good luck to you, Jim. Yeah, I mean, you could. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. You could. Beck is probably the best option of the group. I don't know. It's close. Or Beck or Duvernay would probably be the top options for him. Duvernay more of just like you're relying on. I guess if you're playing uh Ravens defense, because Duvernay does a lot of the kick returning, right? So you could do that double whammy. Hope for the double whammy there. Yeah, it's pretty close. John Mechie. Yeah, that's true. John Mechie is fully healthy, I believe. So that's any 59% representation, as you can see on the screen here. I've already got it up there. Yeah, and now I think there was some question if he was going to be cleared for this week, but he was. So yeah, I like Mechie this week, to be honest. I don't hate him. I should probably run my see if I have any Mechie. I don't currently have any Mechie in my 24 lineups, but I don't dislike him as a play either. All right, let's see. I'm going to run a new one. Damn, I got a lot of Kittle. Yeah, I just think if you go to any of like the receivers from that tier who are not Josh Reynolds or Jameson Williams, I think you're going to get them at lower ownership. Maybe I'm wrong. I guess they're all projected for pretty similar ownership, so maybe I'm wrong about what I'm assuming is going to happen. Going to make some quick adjustments here so I don't just get 100% of these Detroit guys. I want to get the other guys instead. All right. I'll do one more crunch, then I'll answer any questions that anybody has if you have any remaining questions. Huh. Not sure why I'm not getting more Sammy ball game even when I give him a boost. I guess this Kittle just, yeah, it's weird. I'm projecting Laporta for more than Kittle right now, and still getting way more of Kittle. All right, I fixed it. I'm still getting to a good amount of Kittle because I do like Kittle. I want to be clear about that. I'm not saying that I don't like Kittle, but I just was getting like 90%, and it was scaring me a little bit. Few minutes left. All right, I also don't want to get Shakir in all of my lineups. I do like him, but not enough to get 87%. So that will be an adjustment. All right. This will be my final run, and then I just want to see if any of you have questions. Could do maybe I'll finish with one Sunday only draft just for the fun of it and call it a day. All right, let's see here. %76% snap share for John Mechie, yeah. Yeah, Green Bay has not been terrible in tight end. Oh, you faded Laporta. See, I like Laporta. I feel like it's a nice matchup for Laporta this week. Thank you, Honey Badger. Appreciate you. Let's take a look at those. Since we talked about a couple different tight end matchups we just brought up, let's take a look at those tight end matchups just in terms of, and of course, I don't think that schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed per game is a perfect metric because there is like game script comes into play and all that kind of stuff, but it's at least worth looking at. So it's Green Bay. I guess they over the past 5 weeks against tight end, Green Bay hasn't been bad against tight end. It's what are they, 8th, 9th here? So that's not a bad spot. And then they've been. It's a good matchup for Kittle. It's just not in the elite matchup. And then Tampa versus tight end. Yeah, thank you, Ollie, for the reminder. 1 minute until lock, so make sure you do get your lineups in if you haven't already done so. Now is the time. And then Tampa, Detroit. It's a great matchup for Sammy Ballgame, as you can see here. The best over the past 5 weeks in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points per game. Elite matchup for Detroit against Tampa. Goddard. I guess Goddard scored a touchdown last week. I don't think he had a great game, but he had a decent game. I don't know. Anybody want to do a Sunday only draft on Underdog before we get out of here? Maybe I'll do one. You guys can join me if you feel like it. $10. I've kind of enjoyed those. There's a lot of like clear teardrops, so it's fun to like take chances and hope that a player from a teardrop and hope that you can get players all that are in a good tier. I don't know. I've been enjoying them. All right, Honey Badger is going to donate to us with his lineups. Thank you for that. I'm probably donating too. All right, I'm going to do. All right, I've already got it pulled up here. So these contests. Oh, you don't have Underdog, Ollie. It says, hold up. Are you going to join? If you use promo code PlayerQ, I think it's always just your username. If you use my promo, I don't know, you get. I don't know if it's only if you use a promo, the first deposit match up to $100. I know I was just looking at it today. If you use my promo, you get your first deposit match up to $100. I get $10 or something. I don't know if they just give everybody a first deposit match up to $100. I kind of assume they do. Steven, have you played on Underdog at all? So it's so the way it works we can go over the format before we jump into this. So I pulled up the Sunday shootout. I mean, showdown-ish, yes, definitely in some ways, but it's not like every player is a flex like showdown. So it's showdown-ish, I guess, in terms of like how to get unique and stuff, like trying to, I don't know, having to think different, but there's no kickers, no defense. It is, where is all the rules? Down here. So we can go over the rules just a little bit. So you need a quarterback, so you're doing a snake draft, and then immediately after, all of your lineup is competing against the entire field. So you draft a team, you're immediately in a large field GPP once the contests start. All right, where is it? It's not showing me overview. Where can I see so the scoring is just standard half PPR scoring. Lineup restrictions. Nope, that's not what I need. All right, maybe I didn't need to be here. Okay. So you need to draft a team that has a quarterback. Oh, here it is. One quarterback, one running back, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex in these contests. For the 2-game contest, it's only 4 of us. Obi-Wan, good to see you, man. So typically for a larger contest, so if there are for the 4-game slate, for example, this weekend, it would have been you're drafting with 5 other people, so 6 of you in the contest, and then of course there are 8 total quarterbacks. 6 are going to be drafted because you don't have like extra spots in this, so it's different from best ball in that every player that you take, you're going to get their fantasy points. You don't have like extra bench players that could make it in. So you're drafting 6 players in 6 rounds. It's a quarterback, as I said, quarterback, running back, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and then a flex play, which can be any of running back, wide receiver, tight end. And your points count for all of them. But it becomes interesting on these 2-game slates, particularly when there is like when there are clear tier breaks. So in these, I would say for tomorrow's slate, like there are, I don't know what the numbers are. Like I think there's like 5, I would say, good running backs, and then there's a big drop down. So it's like you have obviously both Detroit. You've got Gibbs, you've got Montgomery, you've got Rashad White, you've got James Cook, you've got Isaiah Pacheco. So you have your 5 basically uh, elite tier running backs, starting running back tier, I would say. And then after that, if you don't get one of those 5, which you're not guaranteed to get one of those 5 because there are 4 people in your pod and multiple teams can take 2 running backs. So it's you kind of take a risk if you don't get one of those running backs early. There's also a limited number of wide receivers you can take. Okay, Steven's leaving, so he's not interested in doing the underdog stuff. All right, go enjoy this game. I'm gonna go enjoy it. I'm gonna do one draft before we get out of here. Just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a layout of how these Sunday shootouts work. But it is a fun contest. Glad you land. I mean, I'm not working for Underdog. I'm just doing some Underdog drafts for now because I enjoy them. Thank you, sir. Hi, Sarah. Appreciate you guys all coming to check out the stream. Yeah, I'm just gonna do one of these. I'm gonna do one of these Sunday shootouts, and I can kind of show you as we go. Uh-oh. Could not detect my location. I've been doing these drafts all day, and suddenly they can't detect my location. Did I lose? Oh, here it is. I'm gonna try again. All right, let me. Not sure what's going on there. There we go. All right, so I'm in. So I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. So, but these 2 gamers, you've only got, obviously there's only 4 teams playing and everybody gets a quarterback. So you basically, everybody gets just one quarterback. There's no like leftover quarterback. It's a little bit of a different game. As you can see here, you can kind of see like just based on their projections on Underdog. Oh, Juice McCaffrey got into this one. Good to see you here. There's a clear like tier break at quarterback. Josh Allen projection. The other 3 quarterbacks all project within a point of each other. I was kind of surprised to see Amon-Ra and Rashee Rice having very similar projection. Now, this is where kind of like to cross-reference with other projections because I have no idea how good they might be. Great projections on Underdog, but I don't always find them to be. So I'm going to look that up real quick. I'm going to look up FanDuel projections since they are half PPR. See if there are different tier breaks maybe. And I think, yeah, at quarterback it is correct. Yeah. Okay. So it is. It's very, very different projections elsewhere. Amon-Ra, pretty clear, and he was the one that I wanted to go for. I think Amon-Ra is my favorite pick at 101 here. There's also limited. So if you look at the wide receivers, it's like look at the drop off here. It's Amon-Ra, Rashee Rice, Mike Evans, Stephon Diggs, Chris Godwin, and then it's like I guess Khalil Shakir there, but then now I think it's kind of a big drop off to Shakir, Trey Palmer, Jameson Williams. I would put I think Josh Reynolds ahead of these 2 probably, but it's like a clear drop off after Godwin. I would say you could argue after Shakir. Similarly, running back is like you got Pacheco, Cook, White, Montgomery, Gibbs, and then a huge drop off to running back 2 who might get some action at tight end. I mean, I think these 3 are a pretty clear tier, and then Otten I would say is still like draftable. And then it's like I guess you're hoping for a touchdown with Dawson Knox. You can hope for a touchdown with Noah Gray, but like that's the intriguing thing about these is I always like to ideally just get like one player from the top tier or like fill my players. Fill my lineup with players from the top tier. And sometimes there can be a little bit of game theory in looking at what other people need, what they're going to have to get, and hoping for somebody to come back to you. I did a draft earlier where I got 3 of the elite wide receivers, and I came really close to getting David Montgomery to come back to me, getting an elite running back where I would have been really happy with my lineup, but he went, I think, a pick before me. Somebody took a second running back, which was, I think, the correct pick, but I still hated it. All right. So I have Amon-Ra St. Brown. So now you can see here Godwin, the last remaining wide receiver from what I consider to be the top tier. And then as far as, so I'm queuing up Godwin, and then who do I want at running back? I'm going to look real quick at projections elsewhere. Yeah, pretty close between Pacheco, Gibbs, Cook, and White. So let me see, is there anything breaking the tie here? I guess I'm building out for a little bit of a game stack. Detroit, Tampa. Yeah, so we have, who do I want to build for? I think I'm going to go with Gibbs. It's close. It's close between these. I like Gibbs as he's a good receiving back. I could throw Goff in here now. Goff with Gibbs and Amon-Ra. Can I make videos explaining aspects of DFS? Yeah, I could definitely do that at some point. Later, Obi-Wan. Thanks for stopping in. Hope to see you on the channel again. I'm still figuring out exactly what I'm doing with the channel. Like today was a pretty impromptu last minute, like, okay, I kind of feel like streaming today. So I decided to do one, partially also because of the overlay of the Gauntlet returns. I thought it seems like a good time to get in. I thought for a second Laporta was going to make his way back to me. He did not, so that's a little bit of a bummer. Now Shakir in the last remaining receiver from, I would say, like 1B maybe. All right, so Shakir goes to Jewish McCaffrey. I think now I don't have a tight end. I think I prefer Otten over Knox, and also I can continue my game stack here. So now we're getting to the part where it's like there's nobody you feel great about remaining, but I think now I can take either Goff or Baker and feel pretty good about them with the game stack. Who do I go with here? I guess Baker projects better, and I've got, going Baker. So now I've got a full game stack, and now I'll just take the best remaining piece at the end with my final pick. Sean Geezy, the low stakes DFS GOAT, just been winning, I don't know, months straight, seems like every other day, sometimes 2 contests a day, just absolutely crushing it. Good to see you here, Sean. Thanks for stopping by. Ali, you take care as well. Good luck to you. All right, I'm going to close after this stream because I think a lot of people, like myself, probably interested in going watching the Ravens versus the Texans. So after this next pick, I'm going to sign off. But honestly, there's some decent picks remaining. Wouldn't be mad getting to any of Josh Reynolds. I was going to say Trey Palmer, Justin Watson, I think, in that group. This is where, did David Moore go already? He must have gone already. If he didn't, okay, maybe he didn't. I didn't see him there. So this is the to borrow from John Warner Rotorun, where you scroll the F down. I think that is a good general philosophy. Now Reynolds going to project better, Watson going to project better, but David Moore we saw did, and I've got him queued up, so I'm just going to take him. Was very involved last week. Seemed to maybe pass Trey Palmer on the depth chart, and nobody's drafted him. So it is still good to get low owned players, get a little bit unique in these drafts. Good luck to you as well, Jewish McCaffrey. Nice team there. I feel a sneeze coming on, so I think that now is a good time to sign off. But if you have not already liked the video, subscribe to the channel, please do so. Would appreciate it. If you want to get notifications, you can hit the notification bell to get alerts when my shows go live. Haven't figured out my schedule. I think in the future, at some point, I'm going to figure out an actual schedule so I can let you know more than half an hour in advance when I'm going live. So I hope to do that at some point. Hopefully I have more guests on the channel. Looking forward to figuring this channel out, but it's been fun so far in the couple weeks since I have launched it, but really appreciate all of you hanging out, chatting with me while I do some streams. It's been a lot of fun. And let's go watch some football. Good luck this weekend.